Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a comedy movie review and I'll be having a look at the movie Ghost Team 1. So Ghost Team 1 is actually a found footage horror comedy. It focuses on the story of a kind of basically a group of student housemates. Focuses on two of them, Sergio and Brad. There is a third housemate, but he's kind of not really part of the story, so to speak. And it basically, there's this kind of like a big student party there one night. And one of the guys in his kind of very sort of drunken manner thinks he might have seen a ghost. And he sort of puts it down to just being drunk at the end of the day. But there just so happens to be this very sort of beautiful girl there called Fernanda. And these two guys sort of happen to mention, obviously, that one of them sort of saw a ghost. And it turns out this girl's really, really into sort of the supernatural and ghosts. They just pretty much play along with her and kind of pretend they're really interested themselves. And they're kind of shooting some sort of documentary, really just so they can sort of spend time with her. And so pretty much the majority of film are these guys sort of playing along, sort of pretending they're kind of interested in actually believing ghosts, really just so they can sort of score points with this girl. And that sort of pretty much takes up at least half of the movie. Now, obviously, being a film, there actually is a ghost involved, and apparently this house used to be the site of a kind of brothel. There was like a couple of murders there, and they're kind of being haunted by the ghost of this kind of like Vietnamese prostitute. So, you know, it's not a comedy like a sort of parody, so it's not like things like Haunted House, and it's not a horror film in the fact that it really isn't a scary film at all. So there's a couple of ghostly moments, but there's no sort of scares in it. There's no real, there is one mild bit of gore in it, I suppose, but it's kind of done for joke value more than anything else. But because it's not a parody, you kind of expect people to kind of act in a kind of, I guess, a more realistic manner. And one of the things that here, they kind of don't really react when they actually found there actually is a ghost. There's a couple of times they are kind of freaked out. That's where their life is in danger. But when they just sort of find there is a ghost, they kind of don't really react to it, which I found was a bit odd. Now, so okay, it isn't scary. It's not a parody. So the actual humour, the humour itself is kind of a very kind of lowbrow sort of toilet humour, which is going to probably appeal to some people. But to be honest, the actual jokes are kind of very hit and miss and kind of fairly sort of spaced out as well. So although there are a couple of funny scenes, I have to say there's a scene where there's a sexual encounter with the ghost, which I found was quite amusing and fairly well done, I have to say. But generally speaking, I found a lot of the kind of humour to be very sort of samey and kind of just the same thing. Now, they act very much like kind of frat boys. So this first half of this film, you can actually imagine if two sort of frat boys really were kind of filming a ghost documentary, just not doing it seriously. This is kind of what it'd be like. Towards the end of the film, it kind of gets a little bit more sort of supernatural and kind of a little bit weird, I have to say. Now, it was, like I said, I don't really understand the point of this film because it's not a scary film. It isn't a particularly funny film, and it almost seems like it should have been maybe just like a short movie or a skit on kind of a comedy show. It kind of doesn't really need to be a kind of 90-minute movie. I guess if I think it was maybe shorter, then I guess it would be a probably more interesting film to watch, but obviously people aren't going to go to the cinema to watch a half an hour movie, I suppose. But you know, I'm not a huge fan of the kind of found footage movies, but this one I have to say was probably one of the lesser efforts. The actual camera is actually held by another character called Billy, who is essentially the kind of the audience's point of view. It's basically just a cameraman that is sort of one of their sort of friends that they sort of made, but you never really see him or hear from him, to be honest. So he's kind of like your perspective on it all. But it was some of the jokes were okay. If you're looking for a horror movie, then forget about this one. If you're looking for a kind of a very lowbrow, almost like an Animal House type film, it's not as funny as that. The jokes are kind of that style of humour, I suppose, but there are less of them and they're kind of less well done. It was. To be honest, I have to give this one a 3 out of 10. I didn't find it particularly funny. I didn't find it particularly, scary movie. It's a low-budget film, so there's not much in the way of effects and things like that. But fair enough. I can't really hold that against it too much. But 3 out of 10 for me. I didn't really find much to enjoy, I have to say. What are your thoughts on it? Leave me a comment. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.